Hello, welcome to Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after getting back from the gym. So today I'm going to be reviewing the album Leaving Meaning by the Swans. And at the end of the episode, I'm going to talk about something I'm going to call the Fantano problem. So if those words mean something to you, stick around to the end so you can hear me discuss it. But for now, I want to talk about the Swans. It's hard to describe the importance of the Swans in my life, because on one level they're extremely important, and on another they're not important at all. Well, let me explain. See, like when I was in high school, like mid-90s, right? My friend Keith, he was the actually lead singer of my band. He was like the John Lennon to my Paul McCartney. I mean, neither of us were either of those guys, but he was like the edgy, cool one, and I was like the dorky guy who wanted to be loved. And he played for me the Swans. He played this CD, this album, Soundtracks for the Blind. And it was one of those moments, one of those moments musically where you just sort of say, oh my God, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know this could be done. I mean, obviously, very dark, droning, gothy, angry music existed, but it was done so well and so weirdly that I ended up becoming a fan of the Swans. But the thing is, the Swans, I think, are one of these groups where people get really into them and buy everything they ever did and learn everything about the guy, M. Gira, and like they just get obsessed. Whereas I was basically always a fan, but a fairly casual fan. Never seen them in concert. That's a regret. I don't own all of their stuff, like I bought, some of their stuff, and then he splintered and founded another group called the Angels of Light, which I really like. At one point, I thought I liked them more. I don't think it's true. Funny fact: this band is a split album with the Akron family, and my son thought it was the Batman family. I texted the band. I sent an email to the band, and they laughed at that. So there you go. So like I have kind of this weird conflicted history with them, and so I haven't really been paying attention. I didn't know if they're still making music, that they'd come back together. They've released many albums since the Angels of Light, so I was really excited. Part of the reason that I like this show is that I'm not a music critic. I'm not an expert. I don't spend my entire life thinking about music. I spend most of my life thinking about teaching French, and so it's this great thing to force myself to get reacquainted with all of this music. So in order to review Leaving Meaning by Swans, I actually want to bring back one of my only features, Professor Payne's pretentious preface. And I want to set up this album and how to listen to this album in an art historical context. If you go to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, you will see this astounding painting by Gauguin. Let me remember the order here. D'où venons-nous? Que sommes-nous? Où allons-nous? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? And you see, the thing about this painting, and also just a side note, I'm pretty sure this is the painting that Jonathan Richman talks about in the song Girlfriend by the Modern Lovers. He says he wants to go to the room where they keep the Cézanne, but there is not like a Cézanne in the Museum of Fine Arts. I think he just mixed up the artists. So the thing about this painting is it's enormous. It's like 30 feet long, 6 feet tall. These figures really confront you. And if you look at it long enough, you'll sort of pick up the nature of this painting. It starts over here with birth, and then kind of goes with, youth, and has all this kind of signs of fertility, and then eventually it gets darker and darker until you end up with the figure of death over here with this old woman. Has all these religious things. If you don't know, Gauguin moved to Tahiti to get away from France. Whole bunch of colonial stuff to get into there, which I'm not going to get into now. But I'll just say this is one of the most moving paintings you will ever see. And part of what makes it so strong is this existential question that drives it. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? And I took my students there a couple weeks ago. I took them to Boston. I took them to this painting. And I told them, don't go anywhere. Just stare at this painting. Just look at it. Look at it. I've looked at this painting for hours in my life. And it's all you can really do because it's an artist, I would say, expressing as well as you possibly can the complexity and the difficulty of understanding our existence on planet Earth. It's beautiful, it's lush, it's epic, and it's almost impossible to comprehend in its stupendousness. Now, what does that have to do with the Swans' new album? Well, I think that the Swans' new album is this Gauguin painting of music. It is extremely long. The songs are extremely long. But lyrically, it constantly goes back to these themes of what are we, where do we come from, where are we going? And I get it. Maybe you're thinking, oh, that's stupid, random questions that we all wonder. Yeah, but what if you could express it really well? I wasn't stupid when Gauguin did it. Gauguin did it with this interesting way of depicting different cultures, and he was very Christian, but still did all these weird sort of, not weird, different religious images from Tahiti and Tahitian women and boys and men and animals and all that. But he's able to communicate this, and you can have, as I have with this painting, a sort of mystical connection. And that's what I believe the Swans are going for, and amazingly, they successfully reach it. It is an astounding record. I really recommend it. It's funny, I only review things that I like. But I don't tell you every time that you have to listen to something, okay? Like I do that sometimes, but not every time, I like the Flying Lotus album, but I didn't say you have to listen to it, right? A lot of examples. I've reviewed 200 records now. It's nuts. So that's what this is. If you want to truly contemplate the nature of existence in almost a meditative mantra state, then the Swans album is for you. If you don't know about the Swans, I'll go over their style a little bit. It's really led by the singing of Mjira. His singing is really, really strong. He plays a lot with kind of drones, like usually having something like one note off, or he'll sing one note off and then get the resolution, I'm not him. At times, his voice kind of reminds me of Jim Morrison, just in the way that it's very cool, and like the music in the background often sets that kind of Riders on the Storm atmosphere, especially with some, keyboards, kind of that rainy feeling. Except Jim Morrison is not as cool as Jim Morrison thinks he is, whereas I think Mjira is. It's this really low, wonderful, sexy, beautiful voice. Kind of like Johnny Cash or Nick Cave. But the thing is, I just reviewed Nick Cave recently. Nick Cave's voice left him. Mjira's voice hasn't left him. This sounds just as good and just as deep and just as fascinating as something like Love of Life. The lyrics are mostly existential questions mixed in with some of his more traditional, I call it goth. Nobody likes being called goth, but most things that are called goth are good. So screw it, okay? If you have lyrics like the one from Amnesia, there's a hole in your pale white skin, it will never be clean again. You goth, okay? There's nothing wrong with it. Another track, it talks about the cancer in the marrow, okay? It's okay, it's good. There's even a couple of political references, but they're not too heavy-handed. Very poetic. The president's mouth is a whore. It's not untrue. And really, the thing that keeps coming back when I look through my notes on this album is just the poetry. He's just a great, great poet. And he delivers these lines really, really well. But now the question you're asking me, you're saying Skye, and then I'm saying, hey, I'm Professor Skye. Professor Skye, yes? Where is this music located? How does it exist within, where do these words exist within the music? And this is part of what makes the Swans so goddamn magical. You have this extremely charismatic, extremely seductive, as in like drawing you, like seductive comes from, Latin, seducere, to draw to you. He's seductive in the way that he draws you into him, right? This seductive, fascinating, poetic voice. And it just is placed perfectly in this extremely well set atmospheric place. In French 2, that I'm teaching right now, I teach something that you always have to teach, which is l'imparfait versus passé composé, imperfect versus preterite. And these are two different tenses in the past. One of them, l'imparfait, is used to basically establish the frame, create the background, right? So, it was nice out. The birds were singing, okay? Like anything that would sort of describe. And then the passé composé are things that interrupt. They're precise moments that jump in, The weather was nice and I was relaxing when all of a sudden a wolf chewed my neck, okay? That wolf chewing the neck is the passé composé that jumps in. Students actually respond pretty well to random violence in their examples. So the music of the Swans, where am I going with my pretentious preface in the middle here? The music of the Swans is very much l'imparfait. It's just this beautiful landscape where the words of M. Gira come in like the past tense and dot it and make this amazing effect. I talk about music being atmospheric quite a bit, but it's some of the best music that you can make. Because catchy melodies are one thing, okay? And it's great. Catchy pop record, pop album, I'll go for it. But these songs are mostly, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes long. And the level of composition is astounding because they let everything ride. They don't rush anything. Things will go on and on and on and on, almost like loops, but it's all real instruments. And things change, and they bring in instruments that you don't expect. Like the track I'm going to be reviewing soon, the hanging, which track? I think it's Son Effer. Like this keyboard comes in halfway through, the synthesizer. He's like, where's this all coming from? These like nice subtle changes, big changes. It's all so textured, and they are able to bring in different textures constantly. And that goes for voices as well, like random women's voices and other men's voices, and what sounds like children's voices, and it all comes in. But the music, the most important part, is really just this beautiful description. Okay, so let's actually talk a little bit more about the album. I'm not going to go over every song. It's a double album. It's pretty long. I think what I'll do is I'll start off, 12 minutes in, I'll start off with my stamp. Now, this is not my favorite track on the album. My favorite track is Son Effer. But The Hanging Man, I think, will give you the best example of this style. The sweet kind of looping drone of the music. Very mantra-esque, right? Like you're just staring at this painting. Like you're just staring at it and you're just thinking about where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Some of the lyrics are actually like that in here. Let's see, what is it that he says? Actually, no, not in this song. Well, kind of in all the songs, you have these kinds of questions of what are we and who are we. There's all these things that get added to the mix. So I'm just going to play you a little bit of this song to give you an idea of what it sounds like. And if you've never heard the Swans, but this review is trying to draw you in, well, then I hope it works, because it is such a great band. So here's a little bit from The Hanging Man by Swans. It's almost a crime to turn it off. You hear all those guitars coming in, the other sounds. It's all like that. And that song is, 10 minutes long, but you're never bored, you're never tired of it. It's just that feeling of confronting these big questions by somebody who's extremely engaging. Definitely the title track is maybe my least favorite on the album. It's called Leaving Meaning. Has that kind of Doors xylophony keyboard sound, but the lyrics are kind of like Bono lyrics, like where he says one thing and then the opposite. I'm cold, but I'm hot. I'm angry, but I'm happy. That kind of stuff. It's okay, but then that leads into the last track of the first album, first volume, and that's Sun Effer, and that's just. If I weren't afraid of getting copyright struck, because whenever I play two songs, sometimes it strikes it, it's just amazing. It's got these like yelling kids, like this really primal sound, and then in the middle is this weird fun part. Like it's fun, like it's almost like a doo-woppy rock kind of thing. And asking all these questions, why am I on this earth? Just these questions that keep coming back. Why are we here? Why am I on this earth? A woman's voice comes in, layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, and piercing bass. The second album is just as strong as the first. Well, I don't like it as much, but it's just as strong. Cathedrals of Heaven is maybe the most traditional sounding Swans song. Swan song. I don't mean that to be a funny pun. It's not funny. I don't think that's funny. Professor Payne must insist that's not funny. Interesting track, White Horses. I don't think he sings on that. I mean, The Nub, I don't think he sings on that at all. I don't know who is singing. I'm not actually paying attention to the credits. I don't really think it's that important to pay attention or know anything when you're listening to this record. It is such an experience. It's coming, it's real. There's another track that's oddly sweet, and he really likes to play so much with discord, with things being a little bit off. There's a lot of A chord on this track. It has this nice sort of anthemic feel with a building chorus in the background. Some New Things is actually no, maybe I do like the second album as much as the first because it's so good. It's like again almost kind of a loop, like a mantra, just saying let it out over and over and over again, setting that imparfait, that imperfect atmosphere so well. What Is This is almost a hopeful track near the end of the album. And his poetry really comes through. He says, there's a star in my throat. And again, keeps on going, what can you do to prove you exist? And then there's like these jingle bells at the end. And I'm going to put this forward. This is the Christmas song of the year, okay? It's all about stars and existence and jingle bells. It has kind of a happier sound that I associate more with like Angels of Light, like a little bit of the happier side of Mjira. And then Phantom Limb ends it. It's a little bit too much for me. It has like a lot of different voices going on, and it's good, but it's a little bit much. Well, it does have some of the nice kind of trampled multiple horns sound that comes in a couple other times on the album as well. I will say that there's a new Neil Young album that came out this week, and Neil Young is probably the most important artist for me growing up. But I'm not going to review his new album because on one of the songs, he literally writes a love song to Mother Nature. And that's just a side of Neil Young that I just can't get behind. But the thing about Swans, their new album, is it actually reminds me in some ways of Neil Young's Sleeps with Angels from 95. Because basically they're the same level along in their career. 30 years, 30-so-ish years of making great music. And Neil Young was known for change, but he's also known for making amazingly consistent Neil Young albums way further than most people are able to make consistent Neil Young albums. And the feeling I get listening to this is this guy Swans haven't missed a beat at all. This is just as good as anything from the 80s or the 90s. Just the same way that Broken Arrow or Sleeps with Angels is just as good as After the Gold Rush. That might be controversial, but I'm right. So, I don't know. I'm sorry, Neil Young. I think you might have finally lost it, but I don't know. I listen to Neil Young albums 3 years after they come out anyway, so that's not for this show. I'll finally end with what I teased at the beginning, my Fantano problem. So before I started this channel, I'd never watched a single video by any music reviewers ever on YouTube. I did not start this channel because there is a need in the market and I need to fill it. I started this channel because there's a need in myself. I need to stay mentally flexible, and new music is the fountain of spiritual youth, as I like to say. I need an intellectual outlet. My job is good, but they keep canceling all my upper-level classes, so I can't get out all these big thoughts because I'm too busy explaining the goddamn imperfect and passé composé. So I do this show really for me, If you like it, awesome. But I don't consider myself, like I've already said, a music journalist. So the Fantano problem is that I discovered after like a month of doing my show that the biggest YouTube music reviewer is this guy Anthony Fantano with his channel The Needle Drop. And I'm a naturally competitive person. I think it's because I'm a drummer. Drummers are the most competitive jerks on earth. But I saw that he has like millions of views, and I'm still getting tens of views, you know? And I was watching his videos, and I wanted to hate him because he's the top. How can the top be the best? How is that even possible? But God damn it, he's the best. He's amazing. If you like this channel and you're not watching Needle Drop, you just watch him instead. He's way better than I am. He does more research. He's more consistent. He has really interesting takes. He's a real music critic. He is excellent. And I just think that's a great story for the internet. You know, like, if you love video games, PewDiePie's the top. He's not even the top 10 video game reviewers. The top movie reviewers are garbage. Like Red Letter Media and... Ugh. I think I saw some guy say that, you know, what passes for movie criticism now is having seen The Dark Knight 4 times in the theater. Like, that's very true. So we are blessed by having Anthony Fantano as the top dog in music criticism. And I bring that up because apparently he's a huge Swans fan. And that's all you really need to know about him. So he's only given 3 10 out of 10 reviews. One of them was to the Swans' last record that I didn't even listen to. He's done like tons of things about Swans. So I don't know. This is my love letter to him, appreciating him, and also kind of like, damn it, I sort of thought that there wouldn't be that many people talking about Swans because they're kind of an underground band, and maybe my video will take off because no one else is talking about Swans. But this is going to be, at best, the second best review of this record. It's all right. I'm not as competitive as I used to be because I'm old. Okay, well, until next time, for the weird rabbits on the cover of Love of Life. Next time, I might get to the Kanye album, to actually reviewing it. I don't know. I'm still working through it. Till next time, there's the camera.